Save scumming. To reload the last save game whenever the player character dies or an unfavorable outcome has been encountered. See, the problem with save scumming is that you're basically cheating. In some cases, you are literally changing the differences between, oh, this was going to be a 1% chance of working to it's going to be 100%. It is for sure going to happen, which honestly really changes the experience that the devs, the creators of the game, wanted for the players to experience. Or does it? Shalom, I'm Noah Price, a Christian gamer. I love RPGs and JRPGs, and here on Christian Gamer, we like to talk about, hey, the morality in gaming, because someone's gotta. I've been playing so much Baldurs Gate lately. I'm past the 60-hour mark, almost in Act 3, still in Act 2, and I am surprised that I am dealing with this problem. Growing up, I never was somebody who had a struggle with save scumming. I usually like playing RPGs for the choices, for seeing what can happen, and I like to try my best to lean into those punches, whatever happens, even if it's like not what I necessarily was thinking. I tried to go in and be like, all right, well, it's happening now, and I can always take the solace of like, well, you know what, at the end of the day, at least I'm getting my unique experience, and so that's what I've always tried to do. But I would be wrong to say that I've never saved scum before. You know, playing back in the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, I have in the past saved scum. Ooh, I want to steal from this guy? Well, I better save before. But again, when it comes to a game like Baldur's Gate, where most of the time what you're doing are making choices through dialogue and sometimes your actions that can really change the story and the path that you're going in the game, which is amazing to hear in an RPG. That's kind of what you would expect if you hear RPG, but sadly doesn't happen with a lot of games you play. But when playing with this, the idea of save scumming has been coming up a lot. The idea of, hey, F5 to quick save before an event to make a dialogue choice or a roll in your decision to see what can happen and make sure you get the right odds. I have been known with streaming this game over on Hero Scrub that, yeah, I have reloaded saves because something undesirable has happened and I did not like it. And I was like, no, let's go back. Mark? But the question of, is this good? Should I be doing this? Nobody has prompted me to ask this question, but these are the questions I love to talk about. I love talking about morality in these games and genres of like, what does it truly mean as us as Christians, as us as gamers, and really what is happening here? And honestly, we are technically cheating. If not the game and not others, because it's a single player game, we are at the very least cheating ourselves in our experience. I'm not trying to yell at you for save scumming. Let's just make that clear, because I think what is the problem with this conversation is that it literally almost always turns into, one, people saying, hey, you shouldn't save scum. You're doing the bad stuff. Stop playing the way you want to play. And then you have the other side of the argument of like, hey, quiet. We're not going to talk about this discussion. Just simply do whatever you want and whatever. If I had to pick a side just based on that, I'm kind of more on the side of do whatever you want in this context. I have to be honest, because when it comes to the idea of do whatever you want, that's kind of a scary phrase. I kind of hate it, because as a Christian, I look at the Bible of Judges, and a common word is, in those days, Israel had no king. All the people did whatever seemed right in their own eyes. That's a scary sentence to hear. And so I'm kind of triggered whenever I hear someone say, hey, do whatever you want. I'm hesitant because, well, who says what I want is good? It could be bad for me, even though I think I want it. It might not actually be what I want. Honestly, I don't truly know what's good. So yes, while I am a little bit more on the side of, yes, this is let's be honest, it's a single player game, so we're not affecting others, and we're not doing anything illegal in the game, like we're not hacking or doing anything that's against the law, then what's wrong with doing this thing? What's wrong with save scumming? If it's not affecting others, it's just us, why can't we just do whatever we want? We kind of can, right? And especially in this situation, going even further when it's in this game where, hey, this is a mechanic that honestly, the creators of this game could have made saving different. I know way back in with the old Final Fantasy games, for one example, that in order to save, you have to literally go to a certain spot to save, and so you couldn't just save freely wherever you want. They could have made something like that. They could have made your saving a little bit more limited. Instead of literally being almost anytime, whenever, you could literally save. In the middle of dialogue, save. In combat, save. Anything, you could literally save in that moment. They've chosen. This is a distinct choice that they made, and so it's kind of allowed by the devs, right? And this is kind of where I stand with it, is that since it's kind of in the game already, made as a decision, it's really is kind of just allowed by the devs, the people who made the game. When we look back at games like, oh, Tears of the Kingdom, when it came out, it had a duplication glitch. It was not intended by the creators of the game to be able to do this, in which case, after people were doing it, they patched it out and made it not usable. I think if the devs were able to go and change it, they could and be all in the right to change the save system to not work in this way. In that case, it's like, oh, okay, cool. We got the devs had the final say of it. So in whether you should or shouldn't do it, I would say for the most part, you should. Now don't leave. There's more to this video. Even though you can make this choice, should you make this choice? The Bible constantly talks about this idea of freedom of choice. We are allowed to do things. It's kind of weird, and a lot of Christians struggle with this of like, well, what can I do? And it's like, technically anything, just live through grace and faith that God's got us and is going to forgive us. It's something we struggle with. Paul talked about this a lot. We see in 1 Corinthians 6:12 is just one example. It might not be the best, but it's the one I like. It says, all things are lawful for me, but not all things are helpful. All things are lawful for me, but I will not be dominated by anything. And Paul talks about this in other books like Galatians and Romans, and this idea of, hey, you can do this thing, but should you? You can sin. Should you? No, you shouldn't. It's not good for you and it's wrong. But even as a Christian, you technically can and live by grace and freedom. Like, these concepts alone are kind of wild and something we can struggle with a lot, especially when it's like, well, I want to do this. And it's like, yeah, you technically can. You technically can just eat a bunch of junk food, eat ice cream daily. But should you? No, it's not really good for you, but you can do it. Now, yes, this does sound like I'm putting Save Scum in such a negative idea, a negative spot, when honestly, is Save Scumming really that bad? Yes, in some regards, it kind of is cheating, because in a lot of ways, while yes, the devs have allowed the save function to work in this way, it does in a lot of ways feels like it counterjects the rest of the creators' like idea of the gameplay mechanic, the content, and its story and theme and how it works. Baldur's Gate situation, literally rolling dice, a chance to make this dialogue choice work. It literally seems like there's a lot of these chances involved, probability, and for you to just save scum your way to make it happen no matter what, it just doesn't feel like it works the same. It doesn't go with the feel of the game and respect the game. But I would say there are some areas where save scumming really has been a benefit. The one example I look at, and it's like, it's good, but it's not fully good, and that has to be, well, Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden is a classic old hard game to play, but on the Nintendo Online, if you're playing through there, you can save scum your way to playing the game and beating it. I can actually play the game, enjoy the game, and actually experience the game with some cost. Save scumming does, in some regard, come at a cost of deteriorating your experience of the game. Once you save scum, it really does change your experience. I haven't beaten Ninja Gaiden, but if I do beat Ninja Gaiden, there's a part of me that knows and understands that I did not get the full experience of Ninja Gaiden. Similar to the idea of Dark Souls, where it's known for its hard gameplay, if you had a way of changing it to easy mode and beat it, it's not the same experience as someone playing a traditional Dark Souls. Everybody kind of has that understanding. And where save scumming gets worse, because this alone would be fine, because then it's like, okay, cool, you could cherry pick where you want to do it, where you're fine with deteriorating your experience for a different experience. That's fine, that's understandable, and that's okay, as long as that's what you want. But the problem comes in with some people who honestly don't have self-control, and it ruins your experience for the game, because you're going through the game with that mindset of constantly being told by your conscience, well, why don't you save scum? Why don't you save scum? You know, if you save scum, you could steal all this from this dude right now. You know, if you save scum, you could do this. You know, if you save scum, you could get the results you want. You know, if you the reason why I find this so important and why I want to talk about this, especially with Baldur's Gate 3, is that when asked the question, in interviews, they literally said, Larian Studios said, trust the dice. In our minds, it's easy to see where when you're rolling a dice to succeed, if you get that failure, that's what it is. It's a failure. When really, that's really not what happens. This is a game built on D&D. A D&D is not built on, hey, you succeed or fail. Sure, that's technically what happens, terms-wise, but the whole point of the story is seeing what happens. Failure is part of that experience. It's part of the story. Someone getting a nat 1 is almost as good as someone getting a nat 20. Critical success to critical failure. Both of these are storytelling moments and are part of the fun. You failing, slipping on a banana peel and making a fool of yourself is part of the fun. And Larian Studios knows this and built the game with this in mind. Failure is part of the game and part of the story. So with all this in mind, I suggest to you, I am calling you out, hey, maybe lean into those decisions. I'm not saying don't save scum, but I'm advising like, hey, keep in mind that failure is part of the fun. And honestly, you could get some interesting content that nobody else could experience. And that alone is kind of interesting. But that's it for today. I'm Noah Price, Christian Gamer. Love you guys so much. If you don't mind, leave a subscribe down below. It does help the channel. Does help the channel a lot. And that's it. I'm going to go play more Baldur's Gate. Bye, guys. Jesus loves you. Bye.